Now, I owe this to my friend, Brandon Robbins. Yeah, it just kind of feels a little bit weird to me because this is the worst possible thing that could happen to a Jewish woman. This is why I could not tell that this is the same actress. Today we're talking about The Chosen Season 3, Episode 5, and we're talking about the key character, well, one of the key characters in this episode, because this episode is so packed full of different things. We're going to talk about the woman with the issue of blood, also known in The Chosen as Veronica. This is a very popular character, especially I think women really kind of resonate with this character a lot of the times, how Jesus was able to heal her through her faith and her willingness to come to him and to do everything that she could to get to him, right? And so The Chosen portrays her really interestingly. Obviously, we meet her in episode 4 of season 3, and we get to see kind of her progression through this situation. We see as Eden recognizes that there's something wrong with her, and she begins to share some of her turmoil, basically, saying that she's had this for 12 years, and it's been a really big issue for her. Now, this is like a worst case scenario for a Jewish woman. She would have been outcast beyond everything, and she would have been completely destroyed in terms of relationships, in terms of family relationships, in terms of basically everything in her life. She would have been outcasted because having blood on you means that you're unclean. It means that you can't be in the presence of anybody. You can't go to synagogue. You can't bathe yourself, right, in a public bathing place. Everything would have been so much harder. And so the way that they portray her here is really interesting. So let's take a look at some of these scenes and talk through what she's feeling, what she's going through, and the impact of a lot of actually what she's tried to do to get rid of this sickness herself. But before we get to that, I wanted to let you know that this episode is sponsored by Angel Studios. This is obviously the app and company that helped to distribute The Chosen from the very beginning, and you can still watch all the old episodes and all the new upcoming episodes of The Chosen on the Angel Studios app. One of the very cool things about Angel Studios is they work with a bunch of different shows, not just The Chosen. And so there's a bunch of these crowd-funded shows that you can actually help to support and make a reality. Some of these are really, really exciting to me, and one that I've been in particular really excited about has been Testament, which is a modern day retelling of the book of Acts. I'm really, really hyped for this one. You can always go to the Chosen app and check out some clean comedy, check out some kids shows, and of course they're working on The Shift right now, which obviously stars Liz Tabish, Jordan Ross, and Paras Patel. And all of these shows, including the new episodes of The Chosen, are easily streamed onto any streaming device in your house. So click the link in my description down below to go check out The Chosen or any of these other shows and see more stories that amplify life. So here we see Veronica on the ground, and we see all the blood. Obviously, they're worried about her because this is a copious amount of blood. Like, this is a lot of blood.
Who are you?
What's happened? Did someone hurt you?
I'm not hurt.
You need a doctor. Does your head feel like... Can you see clearly?
Listen, you don't have to help me.
Go into town and get the doctor.
No! Don't. I've wasted all my money on doctors.
Dad. Maybe he could help.
And again, we come to Nathaniel with the blunt personality that he has. Immediately, the first thing that he says is maybe he could help. One of the biggest criticisms that I got about episode 4 is that Eden never once tries to bring her to Jesus. Eden never once even suggests, hey, you might want to go to Jesus. All of my husband's friends are his followers. She doesn't mention that a single time. Now, we know that she kind of doesn't because of her trauma that she's going through right now. She can't think of anything else. She's overwhelmed. And her body and her mind right now are just destroyed. But Nathaniel's first response is maybe he can help. And that kind of pushes everything off.
The master has not been out to the public.
What are you talking about?
We're followers of a rabbi. Very special one. A different kind of doctor.
Different kinds of doctors only make things worse.
What does she mean by that? Let's back up a little bit. On YouTube, I can go frame by frame. Now, look at what's happening here. Now, I owe this to my friend, Brandon Robbins, who is another great YouTube creator. If you want to go check out his channel, I definitely, would suggest that you do if you want to learn more about The Chosen, more about scripture. He's amazing. He actually has a devotional that he just released on Amazon. How crazy is that? How crazy is that? That's crazy. Really actually amazing. It's called Beyond the Words. But let's look at what she is doing here. In Brandon's video, he actually said that this necklace that she's wearing may be an amulet that was given to her by a shaman. Now, what are the words that she's saying here? Let's listen again.
A different kind of doctor.
No. Different kinds of doctors only make things worse.
Different kinds of doctors only make things worse. And then she kind of grabs that necklace that's around her neck. If this is an amulet that a shaman gave her in order to heal her, maybe she's remembering that moment. Maybe everything that she did from the shaman made things worse for her and didn't quite work out. None of the doctors could help her, but this shows us that she was not only searching for healing from normal doctors, but from other things. And we can pull this from where she's from as well. She's not from Capernaum. She's not from Jerusalem. She is from Caesarea Philippi. And if you know anything about Caesarea Philippi, you know that that place is overrun with idols. In fact, there's a place there called the Gates of Hell. And this area is where they would do hundreds of child sacrifices. It's a terrifying place. And this is where Veronica is from. That's where she tells us she's from in an earlier episode, in episode 4. And so we know that she was surrounded by this pagan activity, this cult-like activity. And she has been searching everywhere for the last 12 years to find a cure. Why? Because this is the worst possible thing that could happen to a Jewish woman. She is outcast completely. Nobody wants to be around her. There's no chance of her finding a husband or a friend even. So all of it is because she just wants connection with people again. And she's willing to do anything to get that. So terrifying. It's so terrifying. Okay, but for Veronica, this is a very serious thing. She's been searching out for all of these other things, all of these other ways to heal her, and it's just not working. And so now she's at her limit, and she's heard of this person, this rabbi, who she's heard about from someone else that we're going to hear about in a second.
She doesn't want this. It might not be safe right now.
Sorry. Shalom.
We know she's Jewish by the way that she dresses and the way that she treats even her head covering. So someone just asked in the chat, how do we know that she's Jewish? Just because of the way that she acts here and the way that she shows how she knows the law and how she understands kind of what's going on there. So in scripture, I'm not sure if we know exactly that she was Jewish, but I would count that she was because of the area that she was and the people that she was around, but not 100% sure, I'm sure. So now she's putting the pieces together about the rabbi. So they've said he's a special rabbi, but now she's putting the pieces together.
This rabbi of yours, you said he was special?
The most.
Is he the man who healed the paralytic at the pool of Bethesda?
And so many more.
You know him?
We're his followers.
Where is he now? I won't talk to him until I'm clean, of course, but I just need a moment. And if he's the holy man they say he is, I don't need to waste his time. I could just touch his garment.
That's a superstition.
Maybe for other holy men, but I'm not talking about other holy men. I'm talking about him. I've heard what he can do, and I saw him give his sermon. I'm talking about him, his garment.
Yeah, so I've done a little bit of research on this. I need to do more, but there seems to be some sort of cultural superstition about the hem of a garment or like some sort of healing thing here. But I think what they're playing on here in The Chosen is that Veronica is going from this place of she's going from this place of superstition, and she's going from this place of occultism almost, and coming to a place of faith. And so she is bypassing all of these other things, and even though this may be a superstition for some people, for her it's not. It's all about faith. And it's all about her having that faith in Jesus specifically.
I understand.
I'm unable to go to synagogue. My father disowned me. I've got no one. I've come all this way, and I've waited so long to meet him.
We see as everybody is pushing through this crowd, they're trying to get closer to Jesus. This is how it happens in Mark 5, and we can read that here. We see as Jairus comes up here to see Jesus, he says, "Please help me, my daughter is dying." Jesus says he'll go. Then, as all the crowd was around him, we read this. "And there was a woman who had had a discharge of blood for 12 years and who had suffered much under many physicians and had spent all she had and was no better, but rather grew worse. She had heard the reports about Jesus," and in The Chosen we hear that she hears the reports from Jesse. "She heard the reports about Jesus and came up behind him in the crowd and touched his garment." Now, garment is a word here that we know kind of means the talit or the tzitzit, right? So the talit is the garment that they wear that has 4 corners, right? And on the bottom of those corners, on the bottom of the garment, is the tzitzit, which are like the tassels that are at the bottom of the garment. The reason why this garment is important is because those tassels represent like a remembrance of the law. And so if Veronica is to touch anybody, the law says that they are unclean. The law says that they are unworthy now. But by Veronica touching what is a representative of the law that is hanging off of the Messiah, right? All of this is kind of connected, right? As she's touching that garment, then that's when she's healed, right? But let's keep on reading. "For she said, if I touch even his garments, I will be made well. And immediately the flow of blood dried up, and she felt in her body that she was healed of her disease. And Jesus, perceiving in himself that the power had gone out of him, immediately turned about in the crowd and said, 'Who touched my garments?' And the disciples said to him, 'You see the crowd pressing around you, and yet you say, 'Who touched me?' And he looked around to see who had done it. But the woman, knowing what had happened to her, came in fear and trembling and fell down before him and told him the whole truth." Now, let's watch what happens in The Chosen. See everybody pressing in.
What's going on?
She is.
Simon's house.
We need to get through. Come back. Our rabbi has a pressing matter.
It's him. It's your rabbi.
Stay here.
Our rabbi has a pressing matter ahead. I promise you will come back and
We see the zealot too in this scene, which is interesting. Not a huge part of this episode. We're going to see more of it next episode, but interesting.
keep going forward.
Stay back, everyone.
Our rabbi has a
Reach out, she's trying to get his attention.
No.
She begins to bleed here.
Please, no. Not now. One thread. Just a fringe. One touch.
The guy is coming down as well. He's kind of assuring all the Roman guards, like, chill out, it's going to be okay.
Just
One thread. It's just the fringe. One touch.
She's kind of talking herself
One
up.
thread. One
But then we see the guy who we saw in the last episode who called her unclean and had to return, like, threw his clothes back at her because she was bleeding, and this is an issue for him.
Just the edge. Only a thread.
You! I know you! Get away from him!
Stop it, please.
Rabbi Yusuf! Rabbi Yusuf! This woman bleeds. She is unclean. We removed her.
Please. I promise I won't touch him. I just need to.
Woman, please, we can help you, but not now.
So he's saying we can help you, but not now. He wants to get her cleaned up. He wants to get her to a place where she can clean herself because he thinks that she's on her period, basically.
Sorry.
And recognize this here in this scene. Even Nathaniel and Thaddeus, who had been helping her up to this point, kind of give up on her. Nathaniel says, okay, we'll try tomorrow. Like, that's the best I can do. And she's not willing to accept that.
Please, just a moment. Just
So she rushes in, and again, we see the seat right here. Remember, these are a kind of a remembrance of the law. That's why they're important, right? We see her hand grab out and touch them. This is the hem of his garment. That's what this means. So she touched the hem of his garment, and she is immediately healed. Now, let's see how it plays out compared to Scripture here. Immediately she's healed, and she knows it. That's how Scripture plays out as well. We read that right here. And again, if I touch his garments, I will be made well. And immediately the flow of blood dried up, and she felt in her body that she was healed of her disease. So immediately it happened. Same thing with Jairus' daughter. Immediately.
What's wrong?
Who touched me?
Everybody back. Back. I asked the question. Who touched me?
Master, the crowds are pressing in all around you like this, and you're asking who touched you? They all have.
Someone touched me. I felt that power went out of me.
This part is a little bit weird. I understand, like, they were saying they may have had to, like, switch things around while they were filming. This part is just a little bit weird when it reads in Scripture, right? Because in Scripture, it's like, who touched me? Like, Jesus is asking a genuine question, right? And then here's what the line that Simon says, right? Which his disciples said to him, you see the crowd pressing around you, and yet you say, who touched me? That's what Simon says there. And he looked around to see who had done it, right? So he doesn't see her. But the woman, knowing what had happened to her, came in fear and trembling and fell down before him and told him the whole truth. So this is a little bit different than what Scripture shows as well. She doesn't, like, come out of the crowd and reveal herself like in Scripture, but rather, it just kind of feels a little bit weird to me in this moment here. Like, everybody sees her. She's kind of out in the open, and obviously it was her. She's the one that was reaching there.
Whoever touched me.
Like, it just feels like a weird, like, wink wink moment. I don't know if it was, I don't know if I super like that. I don't think it's a big deal, but yeah.
Come forward, teacher.
It was me. Just the fringe of your garment, only the edge, I promise. You are not unclean.
Why my garment?
I'm sorry. I know I should have asked. But if you touched me, it would make you ritually unclean according to the law. I was sick. I was sick for 12 years. I bled and no one could stop it. But I believed if I could just touch a piece of your garment. I was right. Thank you.
Again, we'll look at this real fast. So, who touched me, but the woman, knowing what happened to her, came in fear and trembling, fell down before him and told him the whole truth. So this is what she just did, right? She told him the whole truth. And then he says to her this.
Yeah. A man from the pool.
So she
He
found
was
out from
right.
Jesse at the pool.
The
Again, I'm
boys-
skipping forward a little bit because there's music here.
He's-
My daughter.
I'm no one's daughter anymore.
Again, this is what we see in scripture. He says daughter here. Very similar to what we see him say to like the paralytic, for example, in season 1. He says, my son.
Look up. Yes, you are. Daughter. It wasn't my piece of clothing that healed you.
But it was instant. I felt it right away.
I know, but it wasn't this. It was your faith.
So let's talk about this from the perspective that we've been talking about throughout this video. Veronica has this perspective that she's searching for something to heal her. And in the end, she concludes that Jesus will heal her, and all she has to do is touch the fringe of his garment, which comes from a superstition, right? At least in the Chosen's lore here, right? And so if this is a superstition, she doesn't fully understand everything that's happening. She doesn't fully get like who Jesus is and what all is going on with him. She doesn't. She doesn't fully understand that he's the Messiah. But the thing is, God doesn't require us to have full understanding to come to him, right? God doesn't require us to have full understanding. He just requires us to have faith, and not even a lot of faith. The faith the size of a mustard seed can move a mountain, right? So in this circumstance, we see this dichotomy between Jairus and Veronica, the woman with the issue of blood. In one sense, we have Jairus, who has gone back through all the Old Testament and all of the Torah, and he's done all of this research, and he knows exactly who the Messiah is supposed to be now, because he has this clear vision of who Jesus is now because of Yusuf's writings. But then on the other hand, we have Veronica, who knows nothing, doesn't have a lot of education, doesn't understand who the Messiah is. And so in a way, this episode is kind of telling us, well, really, Scripture is telling us this, right? But this episode is kind of perpetuating it, this idea that you can come to Jesus and have faith, whether you know a lot or you know a little, whether you think that you're worthy and you're good enough or you're not, right? And so you can come to Jesus with this faith. The only thing that's required is faith. The only thing that's required is for you to believe. And so as we think about that, how beautiful is that, right? That we have this moment of faith from Veronica, from this woman with the issue of blood, where she comes and she doesn't have to know all these things. She doesn't have to understand fully, because she's even confused in this moment, right? In this moment in the Chosen, he goes, it's not my garment that healed you. And she goes, but I touched it. But that's what healed me, right? And he goes, no, it was your faith. Let's watch that again.
But it
wasn't daughter. Daughter. It wasn't my piece of clothing that healed you.
But it was instant. I felt it right away.
I know, but it wasn't this. It was your faith.
Teacher, she was bleeding so long. We can take her.
She is clean.
And again, he's not talking about physically. I think physically she's probably pretty nasty. But spiritually, she is clean. She's come to Jesus, and now she's receiving forgiveness. She's being healed not only for the physical things, but like he told Jairus earlier, he's not just a healer of physical things, but of spiritual as well.
You have blessed me today.
And I know. My daughter, I know it has been a fight for you for so long.
And again, none of this is in scripture. This pretty much ends here. So he says he says, daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace and be healed of your disease. So he's saying you're healed. And then while he was still speaking to her, so there are other things that he was saying, or at least while he was saying this line, someone else came up to him, and that's when the whole Jairus thing starts to play out the rest of it. But really beautiful part here, obviously.
You must be exhausted. Go now in peace. Your faith has made you well. I wish I could stay here longer, but I have business to attend to.
So, like, here is where he should be interrupted by, someone coming from Jairus' house. But it doesn't happen that way. It's a little bit different.
Someone else has faith like yours.
And then, obviously, we see later on a few different scenes with Veronica as well. We see this moment here where she asks Mary for a knife, and then she explains to her about, like, all the accoutrement that is kind of like, keeping the blood from going everywhere. Philip gives her a knife to help her kind of free this bondage in a way, right? Like, it's all this baggage and things that she's carrying on her. We're going to see this in a second here after the healing of Jairus' daughter. We see this moment here where she begins to cut off all of these things that she has. So she has like this rope that's connected to some clothing. It's got like, she has like an extra skirt under her skirt. And then she has basically like a pad that is collecting all this blood, right? And so now she's kind of freeing herself from that because she no longer needs all of this stuff. All of it has dried up and she is now healed. And you can start to see here as well, she looks like a completely different person. Like if we look back at the other scene from her in episode 4, she looks like a completely different person. It's actually crazy to look at the difference there. Let me see if I can find it real fast. And we see her as she burns her clothes. Oops, that's not what I wanted to do. And then she goes in the water. And this is another freeing moment for her, right? Like, she's not been able to do this before. In the last 12 years, right? She wouldn't have been able to swim publicly like this. She wouldn't have been able to get in any body of water because what would have happened? Instantly, blood would have gotten everywhere. So this is a huge, huge, huge moment for her of freedom. Knowing that not only is she clean now, right? Being cleansed spiritually, of course, but also cleansed physically here. Being able to wash off everything and actually be able to stay clean. That's like, man, that's like a crazy revelation for her, right? Yeah, if we look at these two actresses, like this is why I could not tell that this is the same actress. It's so different, right? Like they did obviously an amazing job on the makeup, making her look like anemic, making her look super, super sick. The parting of her hair is in a different spot. Like it's all kind of like, she looks like a different person entirely. I don't know. What do you guys think? Obviously, they did an amazing, amazing job with her makeup and her wardrobe and everything. The color of her headband also changes because it's wet. So it's almost as if that's been rejuvenated and cleansed, right? So it looks completely different. So I was under the impression that this was a completely different person. Also, what is missing from her body, right? Like we talked about Brandon Robbins kind of pointing out that amulet that she's wearing. That's gone. She doesn't need it anymore, right? There's nothing that she needs to be able to heal her except for Jesus. So she's gotten rid of all of these things that she was carrying with her. to kind of, make her the person that she was. Man, really interesting. Really, really, really cool just storyline here as Veronica overall. Let's kind of watch the ending of this to see where she lands.
Did I make you unclean? Did the priest send you?
He thinks he did. We just wanted to go for a swim.
Joke's on him.
We were looking for you.
Yes, to see how you're doing.
Thank you. I know I disturbed you.
It was a welcome disturbance. My favorite kind. Now, if you'll excuse me, I can't miss this.
And of course, we have the pool party scene. Everybody kind of getting in there. But Veronica, the woman with the issue of blood, for being a short story in scripture, I think it was a very impactful storyline in The Chosen. I don't know if we'll see more of Veronica. Some people think that she may become a follower. While that's probable, I don't think it's actually probable for The Chosen to keep her on, but we'll see. Who knows? They really could do anything. So there were women followers of Jesus. Obviously, we have Mary Magdalene and some others that have kind of appeared, like Joanna in scripture. We're still waiting on someone like Susanna, but who knows what's kind of going on there. So really, really good overall. I think the storytelling was great, and I love the writing in this show. As always, there are things that are kind of hidden in the details of this show that they're not going to outright tell you, because they understand that the watcher of this show is intelligent. The watcher of this show, understands kind of what's going on. And as we dig into these things, we kind of find more and more little bits and pieces. And so it's cool to kind of see those things. I love that Brandon Robbins pointed out that necklace and really got me thinking about the superstitions that she would have gone through and the shamans that she would have visited. Thank you so much, Yanni. Rabbi Yanni's here, everybody. But yeah, there's a lot of things that are really interesting about this character in general. Hey guys, if you like this small excerpt from our live stream, you can check out the whole 4-hour live stream over on our Patreon. Just go to patreon.com/thesnipelife. This is seriously the best way to help to support our ministry and our YouTube channel. Thank you so much, and we'll see you over there.